Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. So today, I'm changing it up a little bit. I'm not going to release a new episode. In fact, I'm going to re-release an episode that first came out in season 1. And the reason is because of the current climate and everything that's going on in the world right now. I just wanted to point out a few facts that I saw online that there's so many racial disparities in infertility and women's health. Some of the facts I read were that Black women have lower live birth rates. Black women have lower live birth rates even after IVF. Black women have higher miscarriage rates even after IVF. Black women have higher rates of infertility. Black women receive the fewest treatments for infertility. And Black women have higher rates of maternal death when compared to white, Hispanic, Asian, and other women. So I just wanted to point that out and say that my job today is to amplify some voices. So I'm re-releasing the episode that I did with Nichelle Sublett, who is Mrs. North Carolina 2018. And in our talk, she tells us all about the 5 painful years of infertility she endured. And what I thought was so interesting at the time and is so pertinent again today and always is that she talked about why in the African American community, infertility and pregnant loss just are not talked about. So hopefully this will start the conversation even more and add to the amazing voices that are out there right now. I just want to say that, Nichelle, I adore you. We've become friends since we did this episode, and thank you for doing this in the first place. So without further ado, this is Nichelle's infertility story. Hi, Nichelle. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for doing this today.
You're welcome.
First Mrs. North Carolina that I've ever interviewed. Congratulations on that, by the way. You won that in 2018, right?
Yes.
Tell me about pageant life. How did you get into it?
Well, it was actually my first pageant, believe it or not, because
the first one ever?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, growing up, I never got into pageants. I was a gymnast and cheerleader, and I never had the opportunity really, and never really thought about it actually. Mm-hmm. And so I have a really good friend who kept telling me that I should do a pageant because she was Mrs. Georgia in 2014. Mm-hmm. And every year I was like, no, because I'm going to be pregnant or I'll have a fertility treatment. And then I finally just said, I've been saying this for the past 4 years. I'm going to do it now. And thought that it would be like something really cool to try.
Mm-hmm. How was the experience for you?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it ended up working out really well. I think it opened my eyes to pageants a little bit more, to see more in depth what they were about, and that are mothers and wives and accomplished career women. And so everyone had something special they were bringing to the table, and being amongst all those women, I thought was incredibly empowering. And of course, led me to speaking about my personal journeys and kind of sharing that and getting more awareness to infertility. So I thought that it was a wonderful experience.
Tell me about how it all began for you. First of all, how did you meet your husband, and when did you guys start trying to have kids? And did you always know that you wanted to?
Yeah, well, I met my husband through a mutual friend in the summer of 2010. So we met at kind of a nightclub, fell in love, got married in 2013. And immediately upon coming back from the honeymoon, I stopped taking my birth control because I was just ready right away. I felt like I had been ready for a while. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that he was exactly on board with that, but he was fine with me stopping the pill and said, whatever happens, happens. But he just wasn't in a rush like I was. So after about 6 months, I was beginning to get concerned because even though we weren't necessarily trying, of course, you get concerned after it's been a certain amount of months. And I thought we were too young to really have any issues. So that was when my OBGYN told me that I had PCOS after doing a number of tests and looking at my ovaries.
So how did that affect you? What were the symptoms and what were you going through medically?
Well, my symptoms, the Hallmark symptom was not ovulating, which I didn't realize I wasn't ovulating because I was having a period every month. So I didn't know that you could have a period and not ovulate, but she cleared that up for me. You can, and you can also not have a period and be ovulating. So that was interesting. Some of the other symptoms I didn't really have, like I didn't have the obesity or male pattern hair growth. There's some other symptoms as well that I didn't have hair falling out of my head. I didn't have like the diabetes part where some people have insulin resistance. So I really didn't have a lot of the symptoms, which is why I think nobody ever caught it in the past. Because I did have irregular periods in college, but I was a college cheerleader. And they said, oh, well, you know, you just don't have enough body fat. And from athletics, that's probably why you're skipping periods. But by the time I went to see my OBGYN, I had consistently been getting a period monthly. So it was a bit surprising.
When you found out that you had it, so then what did they do? Was there like a medical protocol or did you start doing anything differently?
Well, generally, I think the protocol is to start you on Clomid. So I had 2 rounds of Clomid, which was 2 different months, and you take the medicine for 5 days in a month. So it was really simple. I didn't have too many of the bad side effects, more just hot flashes. And on the 2nd month, we did conceive. And we thought, oh, wow, you know, this wasn't so bad after all, you know, worked really soon. But at 8 weeks, they discovered that we still didn't have a heartbeat. And so my doctor recommended to have a D&E at that point.
I'm so sorry. Oh, how was that on you emotionally?
Oh, it was horrible. I mean, I think we were just so excited and so surprised that it worked so fast that when she called to say that my HCG numbers were going down, at first I couldn't even wrap my mind around it because I thought the hard part for us would be getting pregnant, not keeping the pregnancy. Yeah. So that was really devastating. And I feel like it took a long time to get over. Of course, emotionally, you're kind of scarred and wondering, well, what's going to happen the next time. But my doctor kept telling us, oh, well, you know, a lot of people have a miscarriage, something like 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage. It doesn't mean that you won't have a successful pregnancy. So
did you have anybody in your life that had suffered a miscarriage? Any of your friends or relatives or anything?
At that point, I honestly didn't know if anyone I knew had suffered a miscarriage because nobody had talked about it. And then when we told a few people, we learned that they had indeed suffered miscarriages, even one of my grandmothers, which nobody had ever said anything about before. You know, it's kind of this thing that people carry in silence and they don't share it.
So what happened after that?
After that, we took a break and did some traveling. And then she referred me to a reproductive endocrinologist. So we started seeing her. That was in the fall of 2014.
Okay.
So it was the following year. And that doctor put me on letrozole for 4 months. Now, the first month, we had a chemical pregnancy. So when I became pregnant the first month, I thought, oh, okay, we just needed, you know, another dose of an ovulation-inducing drug, not realizing that once again, something was going to be wrong. So after that, we did 3 IUIs, and then we got ready for IVF.
Okay. How were the IUIs for you?
The IUIs were honestly pretty easy. I would just take letrozole each month, which was, again, for 5 days, and then they would monitor how many eggs I was producing and looking at the follicles and would tell us to come in. And you know, my husband would leave a sample because they determined that nothing was wrong on his side, and then they would do the IUI, and you would just kind of lay there for 15 minutes afterwards. I did learn after we did ours that 2 people I knew through work had successful IUIs.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And so that was kind of surprising to me, because they told us before we went in that basically it increased your chances to the same amount that any other couple would have trying to conceive each month, which I think is 17 to 20%.
Okay.
So it wasn't a huge percentage, but at least it put us on par with normal couples.
Right. Right. Okay.
So after that, we got ready for IVF, and we thought that was definitely going to be the answer, and got geared up, took all the drugs, all the shots.
Mm-hmm.
I thought at first that it wasn't too bad, but then when you're doing the stimming, like that last 11 days, I think, prior to the actual retrieval, I got so many side effects, like as far as the bloating in the stomach and just feeling nauseated. I had digestive issues. There are a lot of things that come along with that I feel like people don't really talk about with the IVF process. Yeah.
Definitely. Did you have any like hormonal things as well?
I think emotionally I was just all over the place because I mean, at that point we were embarking on something totally new that we never thought we would need, because we kept thinking, oh, well, Clomid is going to solve this problem, or Letrozole is going to solve our problem. If my problem is not ovulating, why do we need IVF? So at that point, we were just in shock that we even got to that point. So at that point, we thought IVF was absolutely the answer, that it would work the first time. They told us that we were healthy, we were young, there was no reason why it wouldn't work. Now, they did say it was about a 60% chance because we did the genetic testing as well. But we just, again, assumed that, well, this is the answer. So we did 2 frozen embryo transfers. Neither were successful. The first one, I didn't get pregnant. And then the second one, I had a miscarriage at about 7 weeks.
Oh, I'm so sorry. How long between the 2 did you wait?
We waited about 3 months. So we did one in November and then one in April.
Okay.
But again, we were using the PGS tested embryos. And so we just thought, of course, this is going to work. And I had made tons of eggs. There were so many eggs and so many embryos, but we only had a few come back genetically normal. So we had 3 that came back genetically normal. So at this point, we've now used 2 of them, and we're not sure what to do. And then my doctor suggested that if we wanted to have more than 1 child, because we just had the 1 embryo left at this point, that we should do another egg retrieval. So I did yet another egg retrieval, and that was in January of 2017. And it was a similar result. This time we got 4 that were genetically normal. So we banked those. So at this point we had 5 banked away, and we were really excited about that.
That's
and ready
great.
to move forward. Thank you. But 1 month after my retrieval, I was pregnant and completely shocked.
Like without using the IVF, just naturally.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Just out of the blue.
Oh my gosh.
So unfortunately, once again, that one ended in miscarriage, but at 11 weeks. So that one was particularly devastating because everyone says, oh, you get to 11, 12 weeks and you're good.
Right,
you don't need to worry anymore.
Plus, I'm sure having passed that mark that you had, had the losses at before the 7 and 8 weeks, you were probably like, oh, wait, 9 weeks, never been here before, 10 weeks.
Right.
So you start feeling a little more confident probably, right?
Exactly. And we kept seeing a healthy heartbeat, which we had never seen before. So, after you see multiple heartbeats on the ultrasound, and you hear them, you don't imagine that things are going to come crashing down like they did. So after that, we're thinking, oh, we're going to wait a little while, wait for my period to come back. We'll try it again. in between, we did some more genetic testing.
Uh-huh.
They looked at our embryos again, the ones that were left, and just determined they wanted to see if they had any additional issues. So even though they had done the genetic testing, they wanted to look further. I can't think of the name, but basically it's where part of the embryo is okay and part of it isn't. So they checked out our embryos again. Everything looked great. They said we could move forward with another transfer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the meantime, I got pregnant again.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So at this point, it was August of 2017. I've already signed everything to do the pageant, which was in November. So I'm thinking that's what I'm doing. That's my path. I'm not thinking about doing a transfer right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I pop up pregnant again.
Wow.
So
God,
again,
your body you've been through so much already at this point, right? It's such a roller coaster.
Right. It was so much at this point. I've already had 4 miscarriages. I've had all these fertility treatments. I mean, it just didn't seem like another thing could go wrong.
Right.
It did yet again.
Oh, God.
Ended up miscarrying in September. So pretty much the next month. At that point, we just had no idea what to do. They had tested a few of our miscarriages in the past, and they kept finding that it was a chromosomal problem with the baby. And so we didn't know if with those natural pregnancies, if that's probably what happened again.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So it was just horrible. You know, it's this roller coaster that you're going on with you and your husband. And
yeah. How are you guys doing relationship wise?
I feel like it was very, very stressful and very painful on the marriage, because in the meantime, we have people sending us baby shower invitations and friends getting pregnant and family members getting pregnant. And people would always call my husband to ask, well, what should we do? Should my wife tell Nichelle? Do you want to tell her? And he would always be the one to tell me, but then he would tell me that it was just so stressful on him having to think about when and how and when would be a good time. And he made the mistake one time of telling me about 2 different people who were pregnant while we were on a flight somewhere. And it was, I mean, I literally could not stop crying for about 5 hours.
Oh God. Because on a flight, don't you find that you cry so easily anyway? Like
yes.
There's something about
and then there's nowhere to go, right?
Trapped.
Everybody's looking at you.
Right.
You're trapped. There's nowhere to go. I can't call anybody. I can't debrief by myself.
Right.
So yes, I think it just amplified everything. I even had flight attendants asking if I was okay. I mean, it was just an absolute disaster.
That's so rough.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like men also just deal with it differently anyway, because when he would get together with his friends, even friends of his whose wives were expecting, it's not like that's all they talked about. You know, they have other things they talk about, and that's kind of the least of what they talk about. And so it wasn't something that he necessarily had to face every day like I did.
Right, exactly. And don't you feel like too, when you're trying to get pregnant and you can't, or you can't stay pregnant, everywhere you look, someone's pregnant? Like it's just that crazy thing everywhere, and every TV show, every commercial, and it's just infuriating and so hard.
Right. There's so many ads about it on TV with the couple sitting there, you know, smiling because they just looked at the pregnancy test, and you just have to change the channel. I mean, it's everywhere.
Did anybody say anything to you that really was able to help you get through this time?
At this point, I had shared it with friends, with close friends, and I felt like their support was really key, because after the first miscarriage, we really didn't share it with anybody. But after we kept having more and more miscarriages, then we started really opening up amongst friends and family. And I think that was really integral to being able to navigate through this process and even just put one foot in front of the other.
So you were about to do this pageant, and from what I read, another article was saying that you had to have a DNC kind of right before the pageant. Is that what happened?
Yes.
Oh,
So,
that must have been really
yeah,
hard.
it was. It was awful because I had the DNC at the end of September, and then the pageant was second week of November.
Mm-hmm.
So I really didn't have a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I needed to work with a pageant coach who was an hour and a half away. And I also needed to get my wardrobe ready and
Right.
work on interview and set hair and makeup appointments. And, there's just so much. I felt like the only thing that I could do to help myself was to keep living, in which we had tried very hard over the years to keep living. But I just refused to let it take me down once again. So I think that really inspired me to want to do really well in the pageant and also it was a great distraction.
Right. I was just going to say, it must've been a nice distraction for sure.
It was to get ready for something positive and something fun, and to put all my energy and focus into that was really healing.
Yeah. So what did it feel like when you won the pageant?
When I won, it was incredible. I felt like the whole year had just kind of turned around, because it was at the end of the year. It was in November, and things have been really, really difficult since January. So winning just felt like, wow, like the trajectory of my life is now going to change, and it's going to change forever. And I felt like it was going to change for the good.
When did you decide that you wanted to use your platform to spread awareness about infertility?
Pretty much immediately.
Okay.
I always knew that I was going to share my story. I just thought it was going to be after I had everything, the 2 kids, and everything was wrapped up tightly with a bow.
Right.
I had, right. Because in the past, I wasn't comfortable sharing it in the middle of the storm. I felt like, well, how do I share it now? How does that give anybody hope? I need to give people hope after I have my kids. And then I can say, hey, look what happened to me, and stick with it and have faith.
Right.
But at that point, I knew that there was nothing else that was more important to share personally at that time. Each state contestant or each state winner picks a platform to champion over the year. And it made no sense for me to choose anything else, because it was all about spreading awareness about a cause and empowering women. So I couldn't think of anything better. And I had this 5 years of my journey to share and to help people have hope and keep going.
Yeah. So was this when you started it with, was it a social media post? And then I know you created this hashtag, which was hashtag start asking. So tell me about that, which I love so much.
Thank you. So I started with this social media post about a week after I won. And that was the scariest part, honestly, of the whole year, was that social media post, because it was the first time I was going to publicly share anything about what we had been going through.
Right.
And you have this feeling that now you're just running around naked, that everybody knows your deepest, darkest secret, and that your marriage isn't perfect, even though nobody's is. So I don't even know what the hang up is, but there's just like that hang up of letting people in.
Yeah.
So it started with that. And from that, I got so much feedback, whether it was social media comments, posts, private messages, emails, of just tons of people reaching out to say, hey, I've been going through the same thing. What can we do? Or my wife is going through this, or, do you know of any resource groups, or can we get together for coffee? So just from that post, things really started rolling. And then I had different agencies and groups reaching out, wanting me to come speak to their groups about, perseverance and continuing to, get through challenging situations in life, no matter what they are. So I felt like it really started bringing that awareness, and I really just wanted to kind of break that stigma and shame. And frankly, it just was a huge weight off my shoulders. I felt much, much lighter after sharing it. It was scary at first. And then I felt like, great, I don't have to make things up anymore when people ask inappropriate questions like, when are you having kids?
Yes.
I don't even have to make it up anymore. I just have to say, hey, this is what we've been going through. We're trying to have kids.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And there's
that
something
felt good.
there's something so cool too about becoming so vulnerable, I think, and saying like, guess what? I'm not perfect. My marriage isn't perfect. My body's not perfect. And once you kind of put that out there, it's so freeing. I think that people really respond to that vulnerability too. And they're like, oh, okay, I can relate to that. And then it just like makes everybody feel better in general.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I spoke to a women's group called Stolen Lunches. They asked me to come. They're a Bible study group. And I used to go to their meetings a lot and still do.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked me to speak. And that was what my whole message was about, was there's power in the middle. So basically, you don't have to have completed your journey yet or have found success to be powerful in someone else's life. You can share when you're still in the middle of the journey. And sometimes that's actually more important. And it helps people realize that you don't have to be perfect to help someone else.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
I want to ask you too, I know you've talked about this before, but studies have shown that it's twice as likely to affect women of color, infertility, but that it's also talked about a lot less. Would you find that that's true? And tell me about your experience with that. And I know you're also involved in the Fertility for Colored Girls group. So
yes.
I want to unpack that a little bit and talk about all of that stuff.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think so. In the African American community, I feel like there are certain things that just aren't talked about, whether it's mental health, homosexuality. Another big one is infertility and pregnancy loss. And there's a misconception that women of color are actually more fertile. And that's just not true. And like you mentioned, studies have shown that we have infertility almost twice as much as our Caucasian sisters. And I feel like this is really important for people to know, because certain celebrities have put things out about having kids after 45. And yes, I mean, it is possible, but they're just, to me, they're not telling the whole story about how that happened. Maybe that was IVF or a donor egg or a donor embryo. I mean, just all these things that people don't even know about or talk about. And if you don't know about it, especially with women of color, you're just looking at, a Beyonce or whoever, someone who, I know Tamron Hall recently had a baby at 48. And I think she did say she went through IVF, but she didn't really share too much of the story, too many of the details. So I think it leaves this false sense of hope that we don't have a biological clock. And that was part of the reason that I started the hashtag Start Asking, was to really encourage women, especially in their 20s, to get a baseline of their fertility health. Basically get some tests done and some blood work to see how your egg quality is, your egg reserve, if you're going into early menopause, all these things that no one talks about. And especially with the African American community, I think I felt like even more of a failure and less of a woman, because, I'm a woman of color, so naturally I should be able to have babies whenever I want. And this is what we're taught in society and in culture. And it's a misconception that's hurting us.
Why do you think it's talked about so much less in that community?
I think it's just the difference in cultures. I think a lot of times when it's brought up, it's, you're fine, just pray about it. God will make an answer. You don't need science. And my husband and I are very big believers, and we're big in our faith and big Christians. And we felt like God also was leading us to doctors and to science, and that he wanted to work in tandem. And we also knew that whatever procedure we had, if God wanted it to be successful, it would be. If he didn't, it wouldn't be. So we feel like science and our spirituality work together hand in hand. Okay. And I think sometimes in the African American community, it's more just the more religious part or more spiritual part. Yeah, and so people are kind of ashamed to even seek out a doctor's opinion. I know I've spoken to different physicians and reproductive endocrinologists, and they do see women of color coming in those couples. But a lot of times I've been told maybe we'll go in for one appointment and never come back. And that's, I think, part of why sometimes we don't have success is because we didn't stick with it. We didn't keep going to the doctor and really seeking out kind of what was going on and trying to get help for that particular fertility issue.
Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So back to your particular story, I know at one point was it after the pageant that you guys decided to talk about doing a surrogacy?
Yes, we did. Actually, during the pageant, we talked about it. Yeah, because we knew that we didn't want to do any treatments during the pageant year. So during my year of Mrs. North Carolina, we just really wanted to enjoy it and travel and go to the appearances and speaking engagements and just not have to worry about that part.
That must have been fun to do all that stuff.
It was. It was like we were dating again because there was no pressure about anything. It was just, we're not doing this. We're actually actively preventing pregnancy. And so we knew there was no chance of me just popping up pregnant again.
Right.
Yeah, it was very comforting actually, because we just wanted to focus on that and have a great year.
Yeah.
Oh, in the meantime, we were thinking about other options. And one of them was surrogacy, because at this point we had the 5 frozen embryos left. We called them the Fab 5.
I love that.
And they were all genetically normal and healthy. And we just wanted to make sure that we gave them the best opportunity to come to life and to be born.
Okay.
So that was what had us looking into a surrogate, because they weren't exactly able to tell us exactly what was wrong. And so why not, look at other options?
Yeah, that's smart. Okay. So what happened after that?
Yeah. So we signed with them actually, and they started the process of looking for a surrogate. They told us it was about a 5 to 8 month process before they would be able to match us, because there's just so many intended parents and not enough surrogates who qualify. I think they get a lot of applications, but it's tough to qualify to be a surrogate. So we had to wait quite a while. And it was funny because, of course, a week before my transfer, we find out, oh, you've been matched. And at that point, I was just ready to move forward with the transfer, because I'd already taken all the shots and the pills. And
okay. So while you're waiting for the surrogate, you were already lining up another IVF cycle.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
We decided after Mrs. North Carolina that would be a good time to try again, because at that point we still hadn't been matched. And so we're thinking in October, well, we still haven't been matched. We signed with this agency in July. Maybe I should just try it one more time. So really it was going to be my last time. Okay. And if it didn't work, then we'd already be in line for the surrogate and maybe get matched shortly after. But as it happened, we got matched the week before. Oh my God. So then what did you do then? Did you just decide to go through with it, or how does it all shake out? Yes, because at that point I'd done all the preparation. Right. Done the shots and the medications and the patches, and I was ready to go. So, and if we had started with the surrogate at that point, then you're looking at a couple months for her to get all the testing done, and then for her to start the whole process that I had just done for the transfer. So we're like, let's just go ahead with this. Yeah. So we did the transfer. How do you decide which of the Fab 5 to go with? So we asked if they would put the best ones in. Okay. They do a grading system of grade 1, 2, and 3. And we asked, can we get a grade 1 embryo in there, whether it's from the first retrieval I did or the second? It doesn't matter. We just wanted a grade 1, and it ended up being from my second retrieval. Did you know the gender? No, we did not know the gender. Okay. And at the Women's Institute, they actually don't allow you to choose the gender. So they said they would just pick the healthiest. And if we have multiple grade ones, they just pick the healthiest out
flip
of those.
A coin.
They do it. Yeah, I know. I'm like, do you flip a coin? Is it just last one in, first one out? I'm not sure.
So like it's all very scientific until we have to choose the embryo, and then we just flip a coin.
Yes. So we did not find out the gender for a while, though. We decided to not even ask for a while. We could have asked when I did the retrieval a couple years ago, but we didn't. So.
Okay. So how did the transfer go, and what happened after that?
I feel like the transfer went well. I went into it just saying, hey, either it works or it doesn't. I did not put the pressure on myself that I had the previous transfers during the other two.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I just decided that, hey, if it doesn't work, we have a surrogate lined up. So it's not the end of the world, and we'll get our baby some way. And at that point, I decided, it was more important to get a healthy child. Like I was over the whole, I want to be pregnant. I'm like, it's okay. Whoever can bring this healthy child, I'm good with. So
isn't it funny how your priorities kind of change as you go throughout this whole journey, depending on what happens? Like,
yes,
you're like, I want X, Y, and Z. And then you're like, or just X and Y would be fine. Or just X actually, like you just kind of, it gets to a point where, you have to shift your priorities around. It just, you never know.
Yes, absolutely. You really see what's important.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what happened. And so we found out Christmas Eve that the transfer took, and that I was pregnant. Yeah.
So Christmas Eve you found out? That's so cool.
Christmas Eve, yeah.
Okay.
And at that point, of course, we're still on pins and needles. I mean, there's even days now, I'm 32 weeks and you're still in shock. Is this really happening? And there's times where my anxiety can kind of blow up and get the best of me. It's been much better since I can feel him moving a lot. Like he's moving all the time. But before he started moving, so prior to, I'd say 18 weeks, I was extremely scared and never knew what the doctor was going to say. I mean, each appointment, you just never knew what was going to happen, if there was still a heartbeat, and it was terrifying, which is, I think, totally different than most people when they're pregnant. So kind of getting through that was really tough. And there'd be times where I'd just break down crying and say, I don't know what's going on. Is he okay? I'm freaked out.
Yep. It's so scary because there's so many little milestones, and you think, okay, if we hear the heartbeat, then I can breathe, kind of exhale, but you're like, but I can't, because then what if I don't hear it the next time? And for me, it was like, every time I went to the bathroom, I was like, please don't be blood, it's just things like that. You're just never fully relaxed.
No.
Yeah.
And then when I talk to other women who have been through this, such as yourself, they say, you're going to freak out until that baby's in your arms, pretty much. And so just knowing that, okay, these feelings are normal, but I don't need to let them get the best of me. And I think it's hard for others to understand who haven't been through it.
For sure. But that's so great. So you're 32 weeks along. So you are, what's the math on that? I'm not good at math. So.
August 30th.
Okay. And you found out, I know I saw pictures of you guys, and I would love to put these on my Instagram if that's okay with you.
Sure.
You guys did a gender reveal, right?
We did.
So tell me about that.
Well, at first I didn't want to do these things. I'm like, no, we're not going to do gender reveals. We're not doing baby moons. I don't even know if I want to shower. And too nervous. Right. But eventually I said, you know what? We've trusted in this process so far. We believe that things are going to keep going. We have to be positive, and we have to celebrate these milestones. Right. And I said, I refuse to once again let infertility and that trauma just steal all this joy away from me, to the point where we're not going to celebrate anything until he's here. And so I just felt compelled to, you know what? Yeah, let's do it all up. Let's have a blast with this. So we did do the gender reveal, and that was with Harold's family, who they live out in Phoenix, and that's where he's from. So that was really neat, a really special day.
Yeah.
shot the powder out, and it was
I love
blue.
that. See, they didn't have that when I was pregnant. That's like a new
Oh,
thing. Those are so fun. I love watching all those videos.
they are. They're really fun. I've seen some really neat ones.
Yeah. So were you shocked that it was a boy? That it is?
Actually, I kind of was, because for some reason, the whole time I felt like it was a girl. So
Okay.
I guess you just never know. I think that's what that taught me. But I was just so excited either way. I mean, we didn't care what it was.
Of course. Yeah. Well, I'm so happy for you guys. That's so exciting. And I'm glad that you're feeling well. If anybody's listening that, might be going through a hard time, is there anything that you learned that you could share, or anything you could say that helped you get through it?
Yeah, I think the most important thing, no matter what type of hard time someone's going through, is to have the support and to not keep it bottled up, because I think I kept it bottled up for way too long. And I mean, it was literally 5 years before really kind of getting out there and telling people about it. And I kind of wish I'd done it sooner, because it was so healing and so therapeutic. Mm-hmm. And how can you help somebody else if we're all dealing with the same thing, but nobody knows it?
Right.
I mean, that's just pretty ridiculous. At the end of the day, we're just sitting there with all of our feelings and emotions bottled up inside, and then isolating ourselves, because you can't really be the true you when you're having to put on a phony face or make things up when questions are asked. Or I know one thing that started helping me in the last couple years of the journey was just not attending baby showers anymore. It was just too much. But at that point, people understood, versus prior to that, without having the knowledge, I guess that would look a little strange. So, right. Yeah. So I think that you have to be really open and honest with those that are close to you. And I don't mean you have to do a social media post or tell the world, but just at least telling those who are close to you, friends and family, so that you have some kind of support.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Well, I know that you are going to help so many people by sharing your story, and I can't thank you enough. And I can't wait to hear when your son enters this world. It's going to be so amazing. So yes, I would love to keep in touch. And thank you so much for doing this. So it's been great.
Absolutely. Thank you for providing this platform, this podcast, so that our stories can be heard. That's excellent. So thank you so much for having me.
Hey again, guys. Thanks so much for listening to that conversation with Nichelle. Even if you've heard it before, I appreciate if you listen to it again. Not much else to say, but I hope everyone is donating